Bryn, Jim, thanks for joining in this discussion. Hopefully what we can do is, in the next 15 minutes, I'm going to ask a few questions to both of the gentlemen, and you guys can also text. I think the number is there at the bottom. If not, text to A1, text A1 to number 408-650-5040. Again, 408-650-5040. And I'll automatically get those questions into the iPad, and then I will ask some of them in the end. So to start with, Jim, since Bryn just had some time to talk about some of the Trimble use cases, how is IoT in enterprise different from the consumer side in your view?
So IoT is an interesting term and definition as we talk about that, and that Boeing has been in IoT by one definition for a long time now, and that when we manufacture aircraft, there's multiple sensors on the aircraft and a lot of data that flows off of the aircraft. And we use that in things like navigation, operational improvement, or sustaining that fleet of vehicles, and improving design of future vehicles. So we've been gathering sensor data and using that data to help efficiently operate the aircraft over time. So when you talk about what is different now is the price point of deploying and managing those solutions with some of the new technology that's come out in the drop and commoditization of hardware. So now we can do some of the things we've done in the past, but a lot faster and at a lower price point. So now you start to look at your value stream differently. You look at your scope and your scale differently. And then you actually look at the different business models that are now may be available to your enterprise that weren't before, all around enabling your customers. So very much like what Bryn was saying around workflow solutions, that's something that we heavily look at. Key differentiators for us, I guess, in aviation, security is a major factor for us, and it's something that we have to address in IoT. I think IoT also, with these new devices, opens up some new areas and opportunities for entrepreneurs around things like data governance and ownership, stewardship, passive data that's generated by a human being versus machine data. So for instance, a real easy scenario might be, what if I took a sensor as your employer and put that in your chair and tracked how long you sat in the chair, right? Traditional data governance would say the person who generates, the entity that generates the data owns it, so that'd be the human being. But in a future state, I could see where an employer might say, well, I own the sensor, I own the equipment and the material gathering the data, therefore I own the data. So these are things that aren't quite solved yet in this new world. So I think identity, privacy, legality, those are areas to focus in, as well as scope and scale.
Because many people might say, when I talk about Internet of Things, I don't think of Boeing. What would you say to them?
So I guess some interesting stats to kind of talk about. So like I said, our aircraft generate a lot of data. So today a 777 per flight might generate one megabyte of data. Well, the 787 will generate 28 megabytes of data. So when you look at that number in terms of amount of data generated in a year, you go from, let's say in today's year, let's say it's 6.9 terabytes, but by 2030 we're expecting to have 40,000 aircraft in the air. So now all of a sudden that turns into a petabyte of data being generated. So that's a lot of data to do a lot of different things that wasn't available before.
Great. I think that's a remarkable number there, petabytes of data you collect. I remember you telling me the story about the amount of data in each flight that you collect and analyze by the time the flight lands. So that's
yeah. So there's different things that the plane is in communication with the ground, and because in an airline business, it's all around turning the aircraft as quickly as possible. They make money when the aircraft is in the air, not when it's on the ground. So very quickly you have to know, what do I need to fix, what do I need to check, make those repairs quickly and efficiently, and get the aircraft back into the air.
Right. Brent, you have anything more to add in some of those similar situations than your?
Yeah, I think at the beginning, from an IoT perspective, it was always looked at very much from I think the commercial world used IoT way before it became a sexy buzzword, right? And we just didn't call it IoT. connectivity in the enterprise area has been around much longer than 1999 or whenever the buzzword kind of got put together. So I think what you're finding is we as industry partners are starting to now communicate more how we've applied connectivity to the workforce.
Great. So please feel free to text me the questions. I will keep looking for it. But in the meanwhile, how much are you worried about, I know you touched on this, Jim, a little bit, privacy and security, and then are you doing anything specific, Bryn, if you want to start to address some of those things?
So I think from a security perspective, there are three parts. There's the security at the actual device. And so for those of you who are involved from an IoT perspective, you need to take a look at it from an actual device standpoint. Then there's security over the ether, right? So whatever that mechanism is used from a connectivity perspective. And then there's also security back in the cloud. From our perspective, we've really looked at partners to help us with that. So people like WSO2 to look at how can they help us with some of that security logic at both the device as well as the ether and as well as the cloud. But the customer is going to demand more and more security, just like we do with the use of a bank account or other things in our life.
Anything to add there, Jim?
So a big part of Boeing is our defense business. And so we have security is one of our highest drivers and concerns as an aircraft manufacturer, both on the commercial and the defense side. So that's one of the advantages we have in the aircraft space, is that we do have the defense side of the house. And so we have a lot of things that we do and a lot of pressure and a lot of rigor put into our security mechanisms to protect both our aircraft, our airline customers, and then ultimately the passengers riding on the aircraft.
Okay, so I'm going to take a couple of questions from the audience here. This is one for Jim. I'm developing a sensor technology that might be useful for monitoring aerospace structures, but he's concerned about aerospace design cycle. You know, these are all entrepreneurs. They're all used to pushing a product out in 12 months. So how do you?
Could you rephrase the last part of the question?
He's concerned about the design cycle in the aerospace industry.
Yeah, I would love to be able to get around how long the design cycle is. Whenever you touch the aircraft or build onto it, it becomes a part of the aircraft itself. So you have to go through a lot of government FAA regulations, as well as our own design processes to put it onto the aircraft. And then, of course, something that a lot of us don't think about, I didn't until I'd worked at Boeing, was that weight is a huge factor in the aircraft. 40% of an airline's cost is in fuel. And as we all know, fuel is a very volatile thing. It's very hard to control, right? The airlines can't control it. So you want to have the lightest, most efficient aircraft you can, and that's where Boeing has really excelled in our design.
Okay. So my next question is coming from someone in the audience, and I'm going to generalize this because I'm sure a lot of entrepreneurs have the same question. How do you monetize, if you're an entrepreneur, how do you monetize IoT apps based on your experience? What do you guys offer to the entrepreneurs sitting in the audience?
That's a great question, because it comes on what Bryn had kind of stated some of this, and I think in building any product, it's what problem are you trying to solve for the customer? So there's got to be some kind of pain you're alleviating, and then how much is that pain worth to the customer? That equates to value, right? In my mind as a product manager, I almost view it as an algebraic equation. Value equals money, and money equals value. You can switch the variables around. Because if what I do produces value, then someone's willing to pay for it. And how much they're willing to pay me is equal to how much value I'm creating for them. So the harder the problem, or the more value I create, right, then you'll earn more money. So pricing is something in product design that you have to think about a lot in terms of, in that workflow, how much time are you saving the company based on an hourly rate? Are you replacing a component, a part, a service that was more expensive by driving down the cost of what you're implementing? So for the aviation world, a lot of it is cost savings. And again, our customers run a logistics business, really. So how quick can we say that translates into dollars for them?
Bryn, anything to add there?
Yeah, so for us, I'll use Trimble as an example. When we were a GPS-only company, we had a thing, and we provided that thing being GPS into multiple markets that did a task, and that task was to provide a high-level, high-quality position. Where we really saw a transformation in the company from a revenue and a profit perspective, which you as entrepreneurs want to see when you're building your thing, is we changed to more process and task productivity and looked at how that thing and other things could improve a process within an industry. I think that's something you guys should look at is, okay, that happy fork, how can that be used to transform a process?
So this, Bryn, I'm sure it's one of your favorite ones. What role do you think government plays in this, or is there a role for them?
So this is kind of a setup question because I'm a very right-wing libertarian. So so I think there are two parts. You as developers and you as entrepreneurs need to be aware of what are the different regional requirements, right? Whether that be in with data privacy rules or security rules, so that whatever thing you make or whatever thing you develop can be sold outside of a certain geographic area, because that's how you're going to get growth. So, the important part is you must be aware of what are government regulations and what government regulations are there today that could potentially restrict your growth in a particular thing. As far as, the government being involved, I really think that the only place the government should be involved is driving protection of IP, right? Because you guys are deriving IP, and it's very important that they should be helping us protect that IP so that that IP is not duplicated.
Jim, anything there?
Well, for us, the government plays a number of factors, some of it around safety in addition to IP, and that you want certain standards and controls in place, especially if you flew here today. You probably are glad that there's some of those safety mechanisms and things mandated to make sure that you all get where you need to safely and in one piece. IP is another constraint, and I guess as an entrepreneur, yeah, you have to know your customer, know your market. So where are you going to go? What are the rules in that area of the world? As Boeing, we play on a global stage, so we have to interact with governments around the planet with very different cultures and very different laws and regulations around airspace in particular, for example.
Thank you. So I'm going to take another question from the audience, and I'm going to make it a little bit more broader because somebody has written about a connected wheelchair similar to the other examples you gave, Bryn. But if you generalize that, what's the social impact of IoT in your view? I mean, whether it is good, bad, detrimental?
So I think it's been positive. I think what some people have difficulty with is they think that IoT will take away a job or change a lifestyle. It may change a workflow, and it may require all of us to change the way we do something today. But as long as that IoT provides us a productivity advantage or a quality advantage or a safety advantage, then I think all of us should change, because innovation comes from that change, and our life has improved through many of these changes. So socially, I think it's been a very positive.
Jim?
For me, I guess IoT, where I'm kind of passionate about the space, and I'm looking to the entrepreneurs in the audience to help with this, is we're on the cusp of I think cloud and big data was like a mini boom, and that this coming IoT wave is going to be an incredibly transformative time. And I think socially there's giant repercussions. And what I'm looking for from the entrepreneurs is, right now a lot of people look at IoT and they build like data-driven solutions, analytics views that try to guide you what to do. And what I think that we need to work towards, and I look to the entrepreneurs to try and bake this into their products, is try to create those magical experiences where your end user doesn't have to do anything, so that the environment reacts around them. The answer is provided, or it's actually the action's already completed for them, and they just need to validate it or react if there's something out of alignment. So to me, it's kind of the age of magic. We have the opportunity now as technologists to build experiences where you don't need a device, you don't need to look at a screen, and yet people can be more productive and do more things with their time. So I would try and bake that into your solution sets as you look at the sensors and the reaction and the compute. How do you create that last leg of not just grabbing the data, collating the data, but then actually taking an action that improves someone's life or gives them time back, so that we basically don't have to do as much or think as much.
So unfortunately, that's all the time we have. It's very interesting, and I'm sure we could talk for another 30 minutes if we had the time. But anyway, thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, Bryn. Thank you, Jim.